The Oklahoma City Thunder, Logan, are the 1 seed, and they delivered a sweep out here, knocking off the Pelicans today. Grimy, tough game, more reminiscent of game 1 than games 2 and 3, which were just blowouts. How impressed are you by this OKC team pulling this off?
I'm very impressed with this team, and the consistency that we just got out of Oklahoma City is uh, what I like the most, man. They didn't ever let up. You know what I mean? Like, they never gave an inch back to this team when they took care of business. Like, and they made life hard on New Orleans, man. This is a veteran New Orleans team, man. They got a lot of guys who are experienced, and they came in here and they handled business, dude. BI shoots 2 of 14 in this game, 0 of 3 from behind the arc. Like, shout out Lou Dort and them, man. Herb Jones has a bad one in this one. Like, Oklahoma City is gritty too. Like, they may not be like the most physically imposing, like size and athletic wise, but they're
They
physical.
got dogs. Jalen Williams literally barked in this series, bro.
Yeah. Well,
They
dude,
got dogs.
that's their thing, man. I love
I
that.
know, but he did it mid-game.
Some people think it's gimmicky, man. I love it. I love the young OKC culture, and that's another big thing here, man. Is that this young core is establishing a culture and a presence here in the league, man. Early, like they are setting the tone for the future while being real competitors. Now, this is a real contender. Like, I'm glad that they didn't play with their food, man. They never let up. They made every possession hard. They made them work, and in these grimy environments, I really think Oklahoma City is specifically equipped to thrive with two guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. I want to give a big shout out to Jalen Williams for what he does in this game and what he does in this series too, man. The moment could have been big, too big for any of these guys. J-Dub was awesome. 21, 7, and 5 on the series on 53% from the field, 39% from deep, 59% true shooting. And this one just reliable, dude. When they went to him, he got in the mid-range. He found his buckets. He just did, dude. Jalen Williams is so freaking good, man.
Man.
It's absurd. 24, 8, and 4. It looks like two SGAs out there, man. It's unfair when you got two players like that. And that's the thing, man. The Thunder can survive in these environments because they play so feisty defensively. And then when they set up in the half court, they got two guys that can just hunt buckets, 5 out, spread out, attacking one man. And these are isolation killers, man. Great change in pace, tough pull-up jump shooters. That's where it starts. And then down the rest of the lineup, shout out to Chet for what he did defensively and on the glass in this series. A tough battle with Valanciunas. He didn't back down. Like, there were times when Jonas was giving him bucks, like just easy stuff where Chet couldn't contest it. But Chet was up to the task, didn't ever back down, had nearly 3 blocks a game in this one. And the other guy, I was really impressed with Josh Giddey in this series, Carson. Like, I expected him to be a real liability. He hits a big transition 3 in this one where he walks up, sets his feet confidently, sprays it, and he shot the hell out of the ball all series long. 13 points, 5 boards, 3 assists on 47% from the field and 50% from deep. They're second team best, plus 62 in Josh Giddey minutes in this series. The best, Jalen Williams at plus 74. I thought Giddey was going to be a serious liability in this one where you could sag off and you could, just leave him alone on an island. If he's going to shoot like this, you got to go guard him. And I thought also getting to the rack, he had some tough finishes in this series. He had some good floaters and he played defense hard. Like, he was active there. Like, Josh checked a lot of boxes for me that I didn't expect him to fulfill. I thought he was going to be a real negative in this first series. And I'm just proud of Oklahoma City for coming here, not playing with their food, and finish it off. They don't want to give you any doubt, man. They don't want to give you any doubt that they are not the best team in the Western Conference. And I don't think they are, but they played like it in this one, man. They did not ever play around with New Orleans. Props to this young group.
Absolutely props, dude. It's outstanding. Like, just so much an outlier when we look at historical precedents to be this great, this young, and then to seamlessly get through a playoff series like this. Of course, New Orleans is probably the second weakest team in the field looking at either conference, like, because of the fact that they're down Zion. I think Miami without Jimmy is even weaker, but they just didn't have the offensive punch to compete in this series. But that OKC defense was absolutely exceptional, dude. And of course, they're brilliant on both sides of the ball. It was only them and Boston who were top 5 on both sides of the ball consistently throughout this year. But the defense was ultimately what they rode throughout this series. They're number one in terms of defensive rating in these playoffs. 93.9, Logan. Ridiculous. That's some 2004 stuff. Actually, the 2004 Pistons wish that they had a defensive rating of 93.9. That's ridiculous. And what is so particularly outstanding, we can talk about Chet being one of the best pure rim protectors in the league, and he is. His instincts and timing and IQ there are just exceptionally made so many great rim-saving plays. But the perimeter defense to me is only matched by what you have in Minnesota. It is just ridiculous. You have J-Dub harassing CJ. All of these guys, their effort around screens is ridiculous, and they're so quick, and their motors don't stop. And then it's like when CJ gets off of that matchup, he draws Aaron Wiggins, can't get separation on him, pushes off, offensive foul. Like, it's just incredible. And Boston has the personnel to be alongside OKC and Minnesota. I don't think that they are just as consistently insane, though. Like, they aren't those sort of diabolical competitors, unfortunately, where it's like Minnesota, right? Ball pressure, picking dudes up full court, and they have the personnel. The just ridiculous, maniacal effort that we see from OKC, and they have the personnel. That's why I would give them the edge. And the star of the show is Lu Dort. Like, what he did to Brandon Ingram, dude. This is a conversation starting sort of series for Brandon Ingram. 14 points per game on 43% true shooting, dude. That is exceptionally brutal. That makes a Julius Randle playoff series look pretty good, man. He just got dogged by Lu Dort every single game. And it was some of the best individual defense that I've seen over a playoff series. Like, every single possession, BI had zero airspace. Constantly, Lou was super physical with him without fouling. And so BI was like so uncomfortable. He didn't feel comfortable dribbling. Like, he wouldn't put the ball on the floor. He's turning his back to the basket in all of these spots. And then he's getting tough jumper after tough jumper. And Lou is disrupting his catches. Like, he pokes a ball out in this one. It's just incredible. And then you have what SGA and J-Dub are doing and help. Like, forget just about Chet Holmgren. What those guys can do as off-ball defenders with their length and their instincts. Like, they both pick up a monster block helping on BI. J-Dub gets a huge strip. Like, it's just brutal. And then Kason Wallace comes in the game, and he's giving BI fits. Like, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Jay Will, that being the other Jalen Williams, as some less sensitive people would call him, I call him Jay Will, Arkansas Jalen Williams, was doing a good job as the low man. Like, BI is always going to get tough shots. That's just the nature of his game. He doesn't have that sort of quickness. He also doesn't take volume pull-up threes. He's going to take a lot of tough twos normally. But he did not get an easy shot in this series, dude. Like, this was brutal. And I think even though there was an outsized burden on CJ and BI to try to produce good offense in this series, when neither of them are going to be consistently great enough there to compensate for the lack of Zion, I don't know that anybody other than Minnesota could have made life harder on them than OKC. And that's how they win 2 rock fight games. Games 2 and 3, it's sort of like everything is going for them. But games 1 and 4, like, they grind that out on the back of great defense and then ultimately having the best shot makers when it matters most. That's the advantage you have with SGA and Logan. J-Dub is one of those guys. Like, they already have 3, to me, top 35 players. And Josh Giddey was really good in games 3 and 4. He looked confident. He looked comfortable. He goes 8 of 14 from deep. That's game-changing right there. Then again, you get to tap into the value of his passing and what he does in transition. And he's also confidently attacking closeouts, getting to his floaters, like competing defensively. That was good Josh Giddey. And the luxury for this OKC team is the reason that even if you get Josh Giddey like they did in game 1, that I'm not freaking out is I do believe that Dagnall will be willing to go to any combination of Kason Wallace or Aaron Wiggins, who's so damn good, or Isaiah Joe even, to close these games or to play extended stretches. That's the flexibility this team has. They have dogs everywhere. They have skill everywhere. They have athletes everywhere, even against a shorthanded Pelicans team that had to get through the play-in. Like, this was impressive stuff from OKC.
Yeah, dude, their recipe's rock solid. You've got 2 elite half-court shot creators who can go get their buckets at will. You've got shooting surrounding them all over the court. You've got a floor spacing 5 who is 40% from behind the arc, can handle. On the defensive side of the ball, you've got one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball in Lu Dort, who's just a weapon, man. You can put him out there against any of the best offensive players in basketball, and I think Lu can disrupt what they do. Like, he's strong, stout, fast, and he don't quit. And on the backside, you have an elite rim protector in Chet Holmgren. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal recipe, man. And because of that effort category, dude, yeah, I don't care who they're going up against. Like, the Thunder are going to make every single game competitive. They're not going to let you off the hook, and
Yeah.
they're going to linger, man. They're going to hang around. And this is a team, when you have two pull-up jump shooters this caliber, where they are just so good at getting tough buckets, that's not a team that I want lingering, because that's a team that legitimately scares me. They can steal games in big moments, man.
Yeah.
The Thunder have an awesome, awesome playoff recipe already, man.
Pull-up shooters and athletes, dude. It's that downhill combination with being damn good mid-range shooters, and in J-Dub's case, consistently an elite three-point shooter and good playmakers. Like, I thought J-Dub made some really nice passes in this game.
Yeah, I just wanted to hit on one of the key stretches from J-Dub in the fourth quarter. You know, Oklahoma City goes on an 18-2 fourth quarter run in this one, and J-Dub has this nasty sequence. It's a pull-up three, man. It's a catch-and-shoot three. Just, like, these are huge shots, man,
Yeah.
in a closeout playoff game that was tight. You know, it was tight, and Oklahoma City just pulled away, man. So much clearly the better team. I am disappointed that we didn't get to see Zion Williamson. As a basketball fan, I feel a little shortchanged. Just that I want to see what kind of impact he can have on a playoff series, man, and how much he swings it. Like, I know what I think of Zion Williamson and his impact and how great of a basketball player he is, but I want to see it come to fruition on the playoff stage in a complete series and really see how he can wreck things. It would have been an interesting matchup, but that's the one thing that I'm holding out hope for New Orleans, man, is that we can get him healthy, get him right, get him back to 100%, and be ready to go when it comes playoff time, man. I'm salivating. I'm salivating thinking about it.
It would be incredible. I hope we get to see healthy Zion, because the play-in game was obviously remarkable. The one last thing I want to say about OKC is that when I think about how they project to whoever is coming out of that 4 or 5 series, if it's LA or if it's Dallas, I do think it'll be Dallas. I had Dallas winning that series in like my pre-playoff picks. I didn't think there was a big gap between that team, but my thought was basically Dallas is going to have the best player on the floor. They're going to have, as great as J-Dub is, like, clearly the better second star offensively as well. So just that sort of overwhelming shot creation from the backcourt is crazy. And then in the front court, they're bigger, they're more physical. And I do think that still matters in these playoff environments. But like, Dallas would have to show me something, man. And Luka would have to show me something over these next couple games for me to still feel that way. Because right now, like, I'm just thinking about the perimeter defense that those Dallas guards are about to face. They're going to be hounded all series, and they have that burden to create everything. And I do think that the supporting cast, like, I don't necessarily dislike Dallas's depth, but there's always the question of, like, are any of these guys going to play well in an individual game, right? You never know. Any of them could just go ice cold shooting because nobody's that consistent. Whereas with OKC, I get down to the Kason Wallaces and the Aaron Wiggins, and I'm like, hell yeah, dude, play those guys 28 minutes when they're going, or if Giddey's off. Like, I'm so confident in that. And also, it's just the consistency. OKC comes out, and I think this is underrated, and it's a big reason that they got the 1 seed. They play their asses off every single night. And also, by the way, it's not just the depth. They have a third player on the floor in Chet Holmgren, who is a level up, like multiple levels up from the third best guy in Dallas. So there's a consistency there. Whereas Dallas, they've started 2 games this series where they go down 30. Like, unless we start seeing superhuman Luka Doncic, this Luka not cutting it, bro. OKC would wax Dallas. They would beat them in 4 or 5 if you got this Luka Doncic. Like, he needs to take his level way up. And then maybe I could see being confident in Dallas. But right now, OKC is just the better basketball team, and it's super impressive. For New Orleans, Logan, where do they go from here?
It's a great question. I think you move off of one of CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram. I think you shop them around, and I think you saw something. I don't want to take too much away from one individual basketball game, but the one play-in game that we did see from Zion Williamson, what lineup did they close with? It was Jose Alvarado. It was Larry Nance Jr. It was Herb Jones. It's Trey Murphy, and it was Zion Williamson. They closed with the guys that were playing the best around Zion, and it's interesting, man. It's like, I use the Suns not to crap on them, but I just think they're an interesting contrast. Like, you have 3 players who are fundamentally redundant. Zion Williamson is a guy who needs the ball in his hands. And so, or is at his best when the ball is in his hands. So the way to maximize his abilities, and I'm not saying you don't have any other shot creator. I think to alleviate pressure, you need a guy that can reliably create from the perimeter. So if you want CJ, if you want BI, hold on to one of them. You need that other release valve. But I want more guys who can knock down shots, who can just defend at a high level around Zion. And I think that's how you get the best version of him out of this. BI is not a super impactful defensive wing. He's struggles to create his own shot in terms of separation. Like, he's a tough shot maker, but he's not creating easy looks for himself. He's very similar to Chris Middleton, in my opinion, and he's way less consistent than Chris Middleton. I do want to cut BI a little slack. I know he was dealing with an injury down the stretch of the second half of this season. And
yeah, sustained in the torture chamber.
Yeah, that's just a tough draw, man.
Yeah.
I think you got to move off of one of them. I would probably move off of Valanciunas. I just think that we've seen enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just enough
Why?
matchups where he's exposed. And honestly, I think clearing out the paint, maybe getting a real floor, space and 5, or maybe leaning into Nance more, you're going to open up a lot of paints for Zion to just attack, and that's going to make him even more of a weapon. I just think Zion is such a superstar stud that you need to just get players that work and fit around him. And there's a lot of guys I already like here. I love Herb Jones. Clamps, baby. Clamps. Trey Murphy, an elite shooter of the basketball. And we've seen a little bit more of his creation on the ball, getting downhill more into the lane. He's a freak athlete, man. Great touch. So I'm getting to that mid-range, do a little floaty stuff. Good defender, too. Long, right? Those guys work alongside him. You got Dyson Daniels, who is another defensive hound. His shot is coming along, but he can handle a little bit. He's a really good defender. And so there's a solid base here. And again, the beauty of this is I think McCollum and BI and Valanciunas all have good value to the right teams. You know what I mean? I think they're archetypes that can work in different situations. I think their value's probably gone down over the past year. It's not as high as it once was, but I think you can get back good value for both of these guys. So I'm kind of shopping all three of the other big stars around Zion, and I'm just seeing what I can get and if I can find pieces that work or future assets. I'm very fine with trotting out like Herb and Trey alongside Zion on a nightly basis, man. I really like that configuration, but I'm shopping all of those guys.
I'm not sure Jonas Valanciunas is even a quote-unquote star anywhere, perhaps of outside his specific hometown in Lithuania. I think even in greater Lithuania, he's getting overshadowed by Domas.
I overheard one dude watching him play basketball, and he said like 7 times back to back to back as if someone didn't hear him. Man, that guy looks like Travis Kelce. He just kept saying that over and over again.
God, that sounds sick. Yeah, Valanciunas is obviously going to be gone, and his contract's up. I just think if you could get an athletic, switchable big, doesn't have to be super skilled, like literally just Larry Nance, but 2 inches taller, dude. I don't think that's a super high bar. Like, Larry Nance is very solid, but even being a capable floor spacer, being a solid vertical athlete, being a relatively versatile defender, a solid decision maker, like, just give me a plug and play solid big like that. That's so much better than what they have with Valanciunas. And then CJ and BI are just ultimately redundant. And the problem is neither of them are like real stars, not in the sense where we're talking about top 30 players, right? OKC had the 3 best players in this series by far. And when I think about the long-term outlook of New Orleans, there's no question that Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are just more valuable because it's really hard to find elite perimeter defenders who can also consistently knock down spot-up jumpers at a really high level, especially like Trey being just one of the most special pure shooters in the league. That's the vision, bro. That's when they play their best basketball. And I would probably trade BI, dude. I've gone back and forth on that. I think they have to move off of one because when all 3 of those guys were on the floor this year, they got outscored by 3 points per 100. That's really bad for your 3 best players. And ultimately, it just comes down to BI is going to get you more trade value because of his age. I do not think he is the long-term partner for Zion. I just don't think he's good enough. I think, yes, he has these stretches of special shot making, but the fact that he doesn't pressure the rim or shoot high volume threes ultimately just leads to this erratic nature as a scorer because it's so many tough shots and it limits his efficiency. And although I think he's a good and underrated playmaker, he's not good enough there. And your best defensive configurations aren't going to include him on the wings. It's going to be Herb and Trey out there. CJ's 32. CJ can't be the lead perimeter guy on a true contender to me, but it really depends on what you can get back for BI, I think, because at that point, it's like maybe that's how you get your real quality big, because you don't really need more wings. You're pretty set on the wings. But when I just think about how the spacing would improve, having just like willing knockdown spot up shooters and dudes who bust their asses defensively alongside this ridiculous rim force that is Zion. And even though CJ's inconsistent and he was bad in this series, BI was worse, CJ was bad. He was like 17 a night on 48% true shooting or something. Having at least that dynamism as a volume pull-up shooter from deep and what he does as a floor spacer, I think I slightly prefer. Both those guys are flawed, and that's ultimately what New Orleans is going to have to figure out. Zion is crazy. Like, Zion is at least fringe top 15 when healthy. And they have like two quote-unquote perimeter stars, but neither of those guys are good enough. They need somebody who can float that sort of offense as a legit number two. And then it's like New Orleans would be a real contender. They're not that far away, but that is a tough thing to find. So I'm excited to see how they address this offseason, because if they move off Jonas and if they trade either BI or CJ ultimately and do get a high quality big, or even if they add more stud wings, whatever the exact path may be, I would be very optimistic about this team, because the configuration right now is just clunky, but the talent is there.
What do you think about Trae Young?
Oh, man. Oh, man. I would do that. I don't know exactly what that package looks like.
I mean, you're probably giving up.
Because I'm not giving up Trey Murphy.
No, you're probably giving up BI, and you're trying to see if they'll take Dyson Daniels with him and a bunch of picks. I don't know if that's too low for Trey. I don't know what Atlanta would want, but I'm thinking about ideal partners for Zion. I mean, he's a lead point guard. He'll stretch the floor out, and he seems to be available. Like, I mean, there's a lot of rumors.
Yeah. Well, the good news is New Orleans has picks out the ass, bro, because of the Drew trade and because they still have, at least this year's, because of the AD trade. So, like, and they've held on to all of their own, which is a rare thing. So, Atlanta, I imagine they're looking for just an insane amount of picks if they move off of Trey, because what is the other direction to take? Like, he's young. Like, you have to just be going into a more full rebuild. You're not building around DeJounte Murray. At least I hope you're not. And they have picks to offer, and they could offer a Brandon Ingram to where, like, you're still competitive now. It's not a totally illogical option. I don't know. We'll see. But to me, having that sort of pick and roll creator, like having that sort of over the top shot maker, Trey doesn't have to be your best player. Zion can be your best player. They can trade off, and then you're going to defend like crazy on the wings, and you have really good spot up shooters. Like, that's a contender, Logan. And that to me is the direction they have to take. I think running it back with both CJ and BI would be a kind of a waste of a year. And Zion staying healthy is the ultimate key to unlocking all of that. But he's been so good when he is healthy. I would bet on it. I would go all in on it. I don't really see a better option that they have.